Men rising up to end the silence around us about the chains that bind us, to dispel the darkness of illusion with luminous spiritual technologies, to finally become the hero within us all. Arise, the Honest Man's Podcast, episode 50, halfway to 100. Haribol.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Karuna, and with me is my beloved Jai, as per usual. And today we have a guest with us, someone who is particularly dear to my heart. I would confidently say my best friend at the moment, probably the one person who has most intimately witnessed my journey over the past year or so of my life, and someone who I love boundlessly. And he's an incredibly unique individual. Um, and there's so much to him, but we'll kind of, like our tradition here is that we let our guests tell their own story and speak for themselves, what they're all about. um Jai, do you have anything that you'd like to insert at this juncture?
No, Karuna's talked you up a lot, so I'm very interested to hear what you have to say.
Well,
Jai.
I do want to say something before we get started. I
Yeah, yeah.
mentioned this to my family that I'm actually staying here with in a little town in South Africa, and they were really excited to know and hear that this is actually your 50th podcast, and for them it was quite an amazing thing. Now I've been doing this walk for about 4 months now, and I know what it's like to cross over a milestone. So
Mm.
they were coming up with this amazing idea that we really needed to celebrate. So I got my cousins to paint you a picture.
Oh
Um,
my God, that's so
Congratulations,
sweet. That's so
congratulations,
sweet.
50. And then they're
Oh.
actually standing here waiting for me to blow this thing, which is going to be happy 50th. And then
Oh,
they also cut up some really beautiful flowers that I was meant to give to you. This is for you guys,
man.
just to
Wow, man.
congratulate you on your 50th. And
That is
then
too sweet for
one
words.
more. This is a red velvet cake for the
Oh
Wow.
50th
no.
I
that they
think you'll
baked.
you'll
Wow.
enjoy it on our behalf.
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah,
excited.
yeah,
They were excited. They're trying to figure out who's going to eat it.
yeah.
Thank you
Well,
for
Wow,
the
man. That's
gesture. In
I
the
just
yeah.
age
wanted to
of
say, I just
internet
wanted to say thank you.
relationships, in the age of internet relationships, such gestures seem inconsequential. But
Right, right.
what a sweet gesture. Thank you for that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I just want to say from my side, thank you guys so much for doing what you're doing. It's so nice to have that consistency, and the kind of content that you're bringing out is so valuable. And I'm experiencing that in my own life, and it's part of. I mean, it plays a big role in where I am actually sitting right now today. Just by listening to your podcasts regularly, it really does. It has made a big impact in my life, and I'm just one out of many, many men, what to speak of other people who are listening on a regular basis. So I'm very grateful, and I wanted to find out. I mean, I am taking full liberty here because I'm on camera, but I wanted to say, to anyone who is watching this either live or at a later stage, if in the comments below, if you could just write one or two things that you're grateful for these two gentlemen, and the wonderful work that they've done. It's really so inspiring, and it really has got a good grounding, and it's going to go a long way, at least from how I see it. So if you can drop some comments and appreciation for these guys, I know that they'd appreciate it, and it will just keep the ball rolling. So thank you guys
Thank
so
you.
Oh.
much.
Even for a hard-hearted person like me, I'm touched.
Yeah, you can't resist the sweetness. Jade Prabhu always just brings that special sweetness that just melts your heart. No, thank you, Jade Prabhu. That's really, really sweet and really kind. And I mean, I know that comes from your heart because we've had so many discussions of,
Mm.
like post Arise episode discussions. And so yeah, like,
Wow.
just deeply. Deeply appreciate that. So I'm gonna begin introducing Jade Prabhu and his story by just telling of a little adventure that myself and Jade and the one and only Shivananda Thakur, who's currently our dear friend Shiv, who's now back in the UK, but who was visiting here in South Africa for some months. So Shiv and Jade and I got in my little car and we left Johannesburg to go to a tiny little coastal place. It's not even a town; it's just like a little place, Kosi Bay, and Kosi Bay is literally 4 kilometers below the Mozambican border, and so it was quite intense because I had
Wait,
only
that's
two
the name
days.
of the place is Cozy Bay.
Kosi Bay, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But you spell it Kosi. It's
Okay.
like yeah, it's kind of
KOSI.
weird, but everyone just says Kosi Bay. Anyway, so it was quite intense because I had only 2 days off of work. So basically, like we made a 9-hour trip to get there the one day, and like rural South African roads. It was like hectic, but very very scenic, very beautiful. So we get there, we stay overnight, and then the next morning, Shiv and I accompany Jade with his big backpack down to the lagoon at Kosi Bay, onto the beach, and we saw him off, and that was the 5th of August, and today is the 3rd of December. Almost how much? August, September, 4 months. How many months?
Yeah,
3 months,
right.
4 months,
Two
four
days, two
months.
days short of 4 months. Yeah,
2 days short of
yeah.
4 months and a full like 1,000 miles down the road. Jade, how many kilometers exactly do you know?
Okay, so about 2 weeks ago, I reached the halfway mark, which was a
Yes,
thousand six hundred kilometers. I'm
yes.
now probably 1,850, more or less.
Okay,
So
Yeah,
we need to backtrack a little bit. This
yeah,
story got some big gaps in it. So you went to Cozy Bay with Shiv and Jade, and you went there to see him off. So see him off for what? Like we have no
yeah,
context.
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. So Jade had decided that he was going to circumambulate the entire coastline of southern Africa, of our country. And that basically means that he starts below the Mozambican border and then walks all the way around the southern tip of the African continent, up on the other side to the just below the bottom of the Namibian border at Alexander Bay. And that is a full 2,800 and something kilometers, and so he's now proceeded 4 months down the line, and and he's already gone past halfway. So now the question comes, Jade Prabhu, what gave you this wild idea to undertake this incredible mission? What led you to that point?
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about this for some time, and the answer is I don't know. It is being I don't know. What's interesting about that answer is that it really kept it open for me to really see why it is that I'm doing it. And when I started walking, the idea came about when a couple of years ago, I read a book called Mutant Message Down Under. It's about this American lady who gets called by this Australian Aboriginal tribe, um, and she gets invited to go on a walkabout with them into the deserts, into the land of Australia, the outback. And that I reckon that book was actually the start of my kind of like spiritual curiosity, just because they were so much connected to uh, the earth, and having that they speak a lot about like having faith of the great spirit kind of providing for them. They don't carry much with them, you know, some water. They've got like many different members of the tribe that do very specific things. But the idea that came to me was kind of like that real, like raw, natural kind of lifestyle of just completely surrendering to the will of
Mm,
God, and knowing that He will provide in whatever way that you need. So that idea was always there. And I think about 9, maybe 8 years ago, I kind of did go on a little walkabout. I started at a town just below Kosi Bay, and I must have walked slash hitchhiked for maybe about 2 months, and I actually got that feeling. I got that. I was satisfied by that connection of wherever I went, I had that connection. It was like there was a clear sign that that I was being guided, whether it was to somebody's house that they would allow me to come in and have a hot meal, have a hot shower, and a nice warm bed to sleep in, or whether it was somebody telling me the direction of which way to go, or somebody giving me a lift and speaking to me about their spiritual path, and which would encourage me to continue on. There were just so many different kind of like synchronicities that taste for that connection started to grow. I got to a certain point along the coastline, and I'd kind of run out of money and also kind of run out of steam. So I went back to the city and kind of tried to get a job and all that responsible stuff. And then and then a couple years went by, and I was kind of feeling myself wanting more of that feeling of that spontaneity of that feeling of I wasn't feeling connected. I wasn't feeling like I was having that direct connection, because it really does feel direct when you don't know which way you're going, and all of a sudden somebody pops out of nowhere and says, "Hey man, you got to go this way." It's like, wow, it's like that you can really feel that this has been guided. So I lost that feeling, and I was trying to create it in whichever way that I could, but it just never really came. And then yeah, I found myself in a really difficult place, and then I met the devotees, and kind of gradually went into practicing bhakti yoga, but that feeling of still wanting that connection, I wasn't really feeling it. Then kind of a few months ago, I went to Johannesburg to kind of to visit my mother and my brother, and kind of just get some kind of connection with my family and some friends up there. And then Gauteng, which is the province that Johannesburg is in, it locked down. It kind of like independently locked down to the rest of the country. So it was in that moment that I kind of felt like where am I actually supposed to be? Because I was kind of running away from the lockdown, and then I got locked down, and then I was kind of like,
Oh,
what
God.
am I actually supposed to be doing? Like where am I supposed to go? I don't necessarily want to get a 9 to 5 job right now. I don't really have any commitments. I mean, I don't have any commitments that are keeping me in one place. So I had to kind of make a decision, and then I had this kind of like this. Oh, it was actually interesting because my it was at my mother's home that I read this book, Mutant Message Down Under, and I found the book again, and then I read it again, and then I remembered this feeling. I remembered this thing of like,
Mm,
oh man, I forgot about that. I had
mm,
forgotten about that desire. I'd forgotten about that feeling of wanting to be so connected and wanting to have um, that direct connection. So I started playing with this idea in my mind, doing this walk. And I'd met somebody before that I hadn't met anybody before. I'd read an article about somebody who had did this particular walk before. And somehow or other, I remembered his name. I checked him out on Facebook, and he was there, and he answered my message, and we had a phone call, and I asked him. I said to him, I want to do this walk, and I don't have any time limit. I don't have any responsibilities. I purely just want to do this walk, and I need you to guide me. I need you to help me through the process. So he told me all the practical things, like the things that I need to buy, the things that I need to eat that are going to give me enough energy to kind of, sustain through the walk, the amount of water that I'm going to need daily, the places where I'm going to need permits to kind of walk through, private nature reserves, rivers that I'm going to be crossing, wild animals that I need to be careful of, just the whole spectrum of practical things that I would need to kind of just carry with me as I'm walking. So it was now starting to take shape, and I was getting a little nervous because I knew that I had this kind of desire. I had this feeling that this is what I wanted to do. But, like when that starts to take shape, it kind of feels like, oh, wow, this is happening like really quickly, Like, I don't know if I actually want to be doing this. But things were just coming left, right, and center. I had a tent, I had a sleeping bag, I had a backpack. I had friends that were like, yo, man, this is great. This is exactly what you need to do. It was just like, oh, man, I don't know if this is actually what I'm supposed to be doing. But I accepted it. Okay, this is actually where I'm at. And it was quite a stressful period actually during that time, trying to plan and trying to arrange things and looking at Google Earth and checking out like, how far am I going to go and am I actually going to make it? It's like, man, my mind was just going wild. It wasn't allowing me to sleep at night. But the excitement was there. And that feeling was starting to brew in my heart again. That feeling of like being guided. So like I'll give you an example where I went to go and buy a sleeping bag, and the sleeping bag that I bought was too small. It was just like it was actually made for a child. So you have to be very specific in the things that you buy, because you're going to be carrying these things for months. So you don't want it to be too heavy. You want it to have, it's got to be the right weight. It's got to be the right warmth. It's got to be the right, everything has to be pretty specific. So I was going like days and days trying to find this perfect sleeping bag. Anyway, I found the wrong sleeping bag somehow. I bought the sleeping bag, and then I had to take the sleeping bag back. But then there was this guy that was there who suggested this specific sleeping bag that I should get, and it was the sleeping bag that I got. So even though it was such a small thing, that feeling of like I did the wrong thing, I took it back, but then I was guided to do the right thing. That kind of like satisfaction kind of started fueling that fire, that feeling, that connection again to the guidance of God. So I was kind of feeling this thing, and it was slowly starting to build.
I have I don't know if you wanted to continue. I have
I was just going to say, so that was kind of, I would say, like the main thing for that, for kind of like stepping into this specific adventure, was just kind of having that reconnection, again with Krishna.
Can we respond to this? I have
Yeah. Go.
I'm taking little notes on my phone, so don't mind my little looking down. I don't have my notepad on me like I normally have. There's a lot of things about this story that really stick out to me. I think the first thing that sticks out to me is your answer, I don't know. That was the first thing that really stood out. And the reason it stood out to me a lot is because there's like this contrast that you can encounter in a lot of literature between like the active person and the contemplative person. And most men of the world, this is the earth plane. So we're informed by Raja Guna. We're just like very active. And if you ask people, well, why are you doing what you're doing? Prima facie, they will say, well, to do this and do that. But then if you ask them, well, why are you doing that? And if you like keep pulling back the layers, I think a lot of us will come to the question, I don't know, or the answer, I don't know. And having come face to face with that, I don't know why I'm doing this, it forces you into like a more contemplative space that is kind of scary, actually. And I'm thinking about this more like even in the context of like Krishna consciousness. You know, why are you doing Christian consciousness? Well, in the beginning, I had like a pretty specific reason, but after doing it for so many years, if someone were like really press me, why are you still doing this? You know, we have like our basic traditional, well, Krishna prema, and you know, we have like our standardized answers. But if you ask someone, why are you specifically, like on a subjective level, why are you specifically doing this? Not just the standardized answers. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of us came to the I don't know question and will be forced to like actually contemplate. And that the fear of the contemplative life, I think, is really real. Like we're afraid to like enter into that space. It's just a lot easier to just be active and just do what you're doing, following the standardized archetypes of the material world. So that kind of really stood out to me. And I don't want to overspeak. In this part, maybe I have a question about also. But one of the other things that there's so much, but this one I'm gonna bring up is you met the devotees. You're in a space of disconnection. You've experienced some sense of communion previously, but then you're in a period of 2 years where you're disconnected. You've lost. I'm really fascinated how you describe it as forgetfulness, which is a way that we often describe things in Bhakti also. There's forgetfulness of that deeper connection with God, with a higher order of reality. And you meet the devotees at that time, you get into Bhakti. But what I found very interesting about that part of the story is like, I'm still not feeling connected. And I found that like I giggled a little bit at that part. And I find it interesting because I wouldn't be surprised if that was true for a lot of bhaktas today. Like they're practicing, but not feeling connected. And what I appreciate, because you've met the devotees. So how long have you associated with devotees? It must be like a shorter time.
It's about 6 years. I've been practicing. I've been practicing for about 4 years, but
Yeah.
met the devotees 6 years ago.
Okay, I wanted to bring this up, and this may be a question for conversation also. What I find interesting is that a lot of us, when we first came to Christian consciousness, there was like a more visceral search for the truth, you know? And then as we found truth in Christian consciousness and we've embraced Christian consciousness, that desire for truth in some ways got like supplanted by allegiance to like a dogma. And one thing I'm been contemplating recently, actually in the last few days, is that one way in which, and I was reading this recently, one way in which like mass movements generate dependence of its adherents to them is by elevating dogma above reason. And you can see this in a lot of like argumentation that happens on the internet between devotees, where like there's like a dogma that you're supposed to follow this, like these are the rules. And if someone has a question, instead of just like answering the question or placating the doubt, you just push the dogma in their face and you have to just follow this, and that's what it is. And we're not allowed to like, not that we're not allowed, but we become, it's almost like gaslighting. You start to feel like you're crazy because you're asking the question, you know, when the dogma so clearly gives an answer. And what I found interesting about this part of your story is that you're with the devotees, but you're still feeling disconnected, and you're not afraid to like bring that question up for yourself and just say that I'm not, something is amiss here. I'm not actually feeling connected. And I'm not going to just dismiss that doubt because of the dogma. And that kind of is, you know, gives you the courage to set on your journey. And I feel that's a courage and a place that many of us, we have encountered, but we haven't been able to make that choice because of fear. So I guess the question I would have here in this regard, just to that angle, is the courage to, and I'm going to use this language because I like this language a lot. I've used it here on the podcast before. The courage to like follow your bliss, you know, and even when that following seems to move you away from the allegiance to a particular framework, which can be very scary, especially if that framework is giving you so much, it's giving you so much support, it's giving you a community of sorts, but you're still not feeling satisfied. And that quest for satisfaction, that quest for bliss may lead you away from a particular allegiance or community, at least for a time. How do you get the courage to follow your bliss? It's kind of scary. So that's my
really
question.
nice.
Yeah, I've spoken a
It's,
lot there. I'm sorry. Maybe I've
no,
overspoken.
no, it's nice. It's nice that you kind of bring it into context. And the way you did it was really clear and precise. Um, it's a wonderful question, and I kind of feel very unqualified to. I mean, I say that because I sincerely do feel unqualified to speak about it, because I've only been doing it for such a short time. I've been only walking for about 4 months.
Mm.
Before that, I was very much kind of bound by this kind of dogma, and kind of really trying to uh, just fit in,
Mm.
just kind of stay in alignment with what everybody else is doing, and not ask too many questions. Just trust that whatever comes or whatever's happening is for my best, for the best for me. Um, I will say that I think before I met the devotees, I had that taste. I had that taste of that unique experience, um, of being able to follow my bliss. Then when I kind of came into to Bhakti yoga, it was kind of like, okay, I remember actually saying to myself, I'm just going to put aside everything I believe just so that I can gain whatever's going to be told to me, and I can take it
Mm.
fully. So
Wow.
I kind of put everything on the back burner and forgot about it, because
Yeah.
I got so caught up in what was going on around me, and so much just trying to identify myself as being a devotee, shaving my head, wearing the attire, and the whole thing, being there at the temple, and then obviously seeing the amazing examples, from the devotees, that Prabhupada disciples, that are, they were just creating such a wave of bhakti bliss, and all of a sudden everything that I'd put on the back burner became, like I said, I'd forgotten about it, because now I was trying to chase this other kind of ideal, and in being a specific way, and creating an identity that was uh, not necessarily me, but because it was so much appreciated within the community, I just wanted to grab onto it, um, and and I would say, Prabhus, it's like it's really interesting. I would say that I only really turned back to see what I had left on the back burner when I started listening to your podcasts, because I realized that not only were you guys kind of presenting a more holistic way of dealing with just one's life in general, not necessarily to speak of spiritual, but just one's life, and how one can be quite honest with themselves, and honest with those around them, but then also the people that you were interviewing. And I kind of looked back at those things, and I was kind of like, but hold on a second. I actually I actually appreciated those things. I actually felt connected with those things. And that was kind of like the turning point for me, was, and then what came from that was kind of trying to integrate the two, like trying to find out, okay, so this is the kind of identity that I've created. I put everything on the back burner. I'm seeing where I am right now, just due to association, devotee association, and seeing how things run. Um, but now, how do I kind of like bring what I naturally knew into this kind of realm? And that was quite difficult, but it was it was what got me to go. It was what got me to actually take that first step, when I left Kosi Bay that day on the 5th of August, that it was that moment that I was kind of like, oh wow, I I don't actually know what I'm doing here. You know, like I kind of had everything. I had everything. I had the bhakti. I had what I put on the back burner. I had everything with me. I had everything in my bag. I had everything that I needed. I had the support. I had the family. I had the friends. I had everything. I had the encouragement. I had the bee bag. I had everything. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And it
Oh
was
my
then
God.
that I kind of felt like, okay, now is the time to actually now really see what's actually going to happen. I mean, yeah. So is that okay? Does that kind
It's
of
great. I know I'm laughing. I'm really already enjoying this conversation. I'm thinking a book that really got me into like men's issues and previously a few years back was the Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. And
okay?
he's the one who's kind of coined this monomyth hero's journey. And a lot of what you're describing fits the template that he's given there in a very fascinating way. But in one space, we start off in like the known area, the area that is comfortable for us, that's familiar, and that basically facilitates a really slow death
Mhm.
without any meaningful metamorphosis or transmutation. So if we want to go into the world of meaning, you got to go from the known to the unknown. And entering the unknown, he says there's like a threshold that you have to cross. And he speaks about a threshold guardian. The threshold guardian is someone, it manifests in many ways. In your story, it kind of manifests like when you decided that you wanted to do this, it seemed like everything was coming together really fast, and you got a little bit nervous about that, like, I don't know, this is kind of wild. So he would call that like as a threshold guardian, but then finally stepping into the unknown, and to the point where you're not going to be able to turn back. Like you're like, I'm doing this. And he calls that entering the belly of the beast, where there's going to be a profound metamorphosis that's taking place, because now you've entered so deep that you can't turn back. And I don't know, it just, for me, hearing your story, it sounds really romantic. Like, oh man, I really want to go on such a journey. And yeah, this is kind of why I'm laughing. It just, I just the language that you're using, that I don't know what I'm doing. And it seems like that's a really beautiful space to be in. I mean, beautiful and frightening at the same time. But sometimes I wonder, I wonder this a lot about Christian consciousness. We're such a scientific spirituality. Like everything is like very, very precise. And I remember I used to always like judge Christians. I would go to churches sometimes in America to chant japa, because you ain't getting no peace in a Hare Krishna temple. So I was like, I need peace. I'm going to church. And then I would see people like, praying in the church.
Yeah,
And I would
right.
be low key like hating on them or judging them, saying like, they don't even know what they're talking about. They don't know the science. They don't know the science. They don't know the tattva, which I still, by the way, 100% truth be told, I 100% think that to this day, to this moment. But when I would see them praying so fervently, there was something that was also, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. I'm going to use the word appealing or compelling about them being able to pray in a like space of not knowing, and something that allowed them to have a more fervent prayer because they were in the space of not knowing. Whereas my experience of like devotional communities, because we know so much and we could basically justify anything because our philosophy is very detailed, that place of knowledge doesn't allow us the same sort of fervent call out to God for communion. At least that's been my experience. I don't want to speak for everyone. That's been my experience. And I do feel that I see that around, and I could be wrong. So I'm just going to put that out there. But I don't know. There's something appealing about being in the space of not knowing that seems to like nourish this sort of fervent call to grace, to descend into their life. And I'm hearing that. I don't know if that's been your experience of
Very
entering
nice.
such an
It's a
unknown
very nice
space.
point. It's a very nice point, Judge Jagannath. I was thinking one of the answers that I was, because like I knew that the question would come up, why are you doing this? And I was playing with it over and over. And even when I'm walking on the coastline, I'll see people maybe about 2-3 kilometers away, and they're just sitting there, and they're obviously going to see me. I've got a drum. I carry my dalek with me. I've got my big backpack. I've got this floppy hat. I've got this big beard. I'm not wearing any shoes. And they obviously, if anyone's interested, they're going to be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? So I'm continuously trying to figure out in my mind what I'm going to tell these people. How am I going to tell them, like, what am I doing? And the
Mom,
answer is
I've
always,
gone crazy.
yeah, right. Right. There was this one time where I was like, I'm looking for my car keys. I've lost my car keys. I can't find my car keys anywhere. They looked at me, I was crazy, and I just carried on walking. But one of the things, one of the answers that I'd come with now recently is that exactly what you're saying is it's like I needed that space to just be on my own so that I could figure out what I'd learned, what I'd both in the temple and out, so both before and after. And I needed time to kind of digest everything and see what where I fit into those things, because I have what I know, and now I know a whole lot more, but where do I fit into that? Where do I fit into that whole thing? And and what has been really amazing is having that space to actually kind of solidify and simplify all of that. Because I promise you something right now, Jai Jagannath Prabhu and Karuna Avatar Prabhu, when you're standing on the edge of a cliff and the wind is howling, there are raging waves like 60 to 70 meters below you, and you have nothing keeping you from falling over. You have nothing keeping you from, you haven't seen anybody for the last 3 or 4 hours, and you're probably not going to see anybody for until the end of the day. There is something very simplified about that experience that connects you. You don't start thinking, oh, well, we're not this material body. We don't, karma doesn't come into your mind. Did I offer my food to the Lord last night? None of those things enter into your mind. It's just like pure, like you're just there, adrenaline, and you're just like, whew, this is real. And then you have to cross over like a certain rock that there's like nothing, there's like a huge gap in between the rock. You've got this massive bag on you. Again, you haven't seen anybody. If you slip down there, it's over. The only thing that you have is that prayer that you were saying, about these Christians, that there's something real about that. And it's like the only thing that I have in that moment. I've learned so much, I've understood so much, but it's like I can only rely on Krishna at that moment. I can only rely on him. There's nothing else that I can do. And what happens is that when you do jump over that cliff, when you do jump over that gap and you make it to the other side, you're completely exhausted. You've been walking the whole day. It's hot. You're probably dehydrated. You haven't eaten for the past 2 hours, so your stomach's starting to grumble, and you know that you've got a couple hours still to go before you set your tent up. When you cross over that little gap and you feel your heart beating in your chest and you make it, there's nothing else more valuable, and there's nothing else that sticks out to you than gratitude for the guidance that Krishna has given to you in that moment. Even though it's so tiny, in the eyes of anybody else, it could seem like the most smallest thing. But in that moment, when that happens, after everything has happened and what's still to come, there is just this like deep satisfaction and gratitude that just sinks right in. So it's like, yeah, it is, just having that space to kind of allow all of that knowledge that we've read about and heard about in lectures and everything is just kind of like, we soak it in like dry sponges. But then it's just like having that space now to actually now see where it is in my life. Where do I fit into this whole thing, and how can I incorporate all of this stuff into what suits me? Not as in like separate from anything, but what is my relationship with Krishna? What is my relationship with all of this knowledge? How do I experience this life? Because I'm not a pure devotee, and I'm also not a malecha. I mean, I'm a malecha, but I'm not so far gone. I'm still chanting Hare Krishna every single day, so I've got an advantage. I've got something to my name. I might not be chanting purely, but I have something. I have something more than the crabs and the seals and the cockroaches that you see running on the rocks in the middle of nowhere. I have something so valuable than the cows that are on the beaches, and the poor people that are suffering in the villages. I've got something that is so valuable, but how do I incorporate that into my life? Where does that sit in my life? So yeah, it's a really nice point, Jai Jagannath Prabhu, and just having that space to kind of digest it all is really it's been really helpful for myself.
Wow. Your computer is muted, Karun Avatar. We can't hear you. Nope. And
Oh my God. That
now
is...
we can hear you a little.
Can hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna plug in my other headphones. Just give me 1 second. Let's see if that makes a difference. Sorry. Okay, how's that? Is that better?
I think it sounds like we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know why it's soft. I mean, I'm set up as well as I can be. Jade, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so I'm super curious to hear, Jade, how you're going to frame the answers to these questions. Like, where do I fit in? Like, my question is basically what answers have you already arrived at? But before we get there, I'm also strongly feeling that we need a little musical intermission. And there's one, I don't know what you had in mind about what you wanted to play, but there's this one song that you wrote, I think close to the beginning of this walk, where it's like from Krishna's perspective, like I've been there with you. I don't know, that song, I'm just feeling that song right now.
Yeah, sure.
What do you think? You think we should hear it?
Yeah, cool.
Okay, tell us the story. Tell us the story of this song.
Okay, so I kind of as devotees, we're always, I mean, probably even just people in general, we always have kind of like this idea that God is there and I'm here, and God needs to help me. It's always like a one-way thing. It's like, God, I need you to help me. My job, I'm really suffering. I'm struggling like anything. My boss is just deadlines. I'm stressed. I can't help it. My wife is not happy at home, and my kids are really struggling at school. And like, God, I need you to help me. I need you to help me. God, please help me. This is about me, Or, wow, God, I've done this and I've done this, and it's always about myself. But we never really see it from the perspective of Krishna, from God. Now, I sure as heck don't know what it is like from his perspective, but this song kind of gave me it kind of helped me to relate to him more, seeing it the way it would be if that was from his perspective. So it's called I've Been There With You. When you start to look around, no one there and no one to be found. I've been there with you. when confusions cloud your mind, blocking out the sunshine of your heart. I've been there with you. Traveling from place to place, the body changes, but the soul, it stays the same. I've been there with you. You cry out, no one hears. All alone, wondering if anyone cares. I've been there with you. You don't have to keep running away. You don't have to do this on your own. The door's open for you to come back home, where you belong. You've been gone for so long. Watch the moon rise from the east. You sent out wishes to walk beside your dreams. I've been there with you. You've climbed up the mountain's highest peaks, fallen down into the ocean's deep. I've been there with you. The clock is ticking round and round. Your heart beats, but soon it won't make a sound. I'll be there with you. Now it's time to take life's last test. It's up to you how you choose to take your final breath. I'll be there with you. You don't have to keep running away. You don't have to do this on your own. The door's open for you to come back home, where you belong. You've been gone for so long.
Wow. I deliberately at once parts tried to not listen because I was getting emotional.
Oh,
Joy, come on.
I don't do vulnerability in public spaces. So I was like, no, this is getting too close to the heart. I need to stop listening right now. But then I just adjusted myself. I said, it's okay, just calm down, Jai. It's all right.
right. Right.
Oh, Prabhu.
But it is. It's nice. I mean, I kind of, for myself, it just kind of gave a little bit of perspective, just from it's kind of like, and again, it kind of like put me when because I practiced the song before today, and I was kind of like thinking, it's amazing how over the months that whenever I hear the song or I play it again and I sing it, I just that realization just sinks in more and more that Krishna is there, and he loves us as much as we are trying to love him. You know, like the way we trying to be with him, he wants to be with us as well. And it just like, again, it just kind of gives me that place of having that space to find out what it is that he actually wants from me. You know, what is it that he wants from me? And so yeah, that's kind of singing the song again and again and again and again. It just kind of reassures my understanding that, you know, it's very personal. It's a very personal relationship, and yeah, he's waiting for us.
After you complete your walk, and it would be nice if you record it.
Right.
It would be. I listen
Right.
to the music of my friends all the time.
Okay.
Aside from kirtan, that's practically the only other music I listen to.
Jade, you know, actually, Jade has a he's got a fully recorded and like produced album that just hasn't been released. Premananda Kirtan, you know, he's also our dear best friend, and you know, Prem assisted Jade to record his album, but you know, it will be released at the right moment. You know, we're just kind of waiting for that like moment. I don't know what the moment is, but anyway, you will be blessed. You know, like probably. I mean, it's just incredible. It's just incredible. Yeah, I mean, Shiv, Shiv and Jade and I, you know, we were like a little. It was a brief period of time, maybe just a few months, but we became so close. We were like an inseparable little trio, and we used to spend such intimate time together. Jade, I want to ask this question now, you know, just in the light of the discussion before you shared this beautiful song with us. You know, like, so you were trying to, that was basically, but you only sort of like now more recently articulated that intention that you may have had in a sort of like an unarticulated form in the beginning, like, okay, wait a sec, I've been through a lot, I've immersed myself like completely in this Krishna consciousness movement, in this ISKCON society, but I'm also a human being, and I've also, you know, been through so many things, and so now, like, how do I actually relate to all of it? Like, where is my authentic self in the midst of all of this that I've been deeply involved with and have been affected by? So my question is, yeah, I mean, it's been only 4 months. You feel like you're only at the very beginning, like you're just a little seedling, you know, quantitatively speaking, but qualitatively speaking, damn, I mean, more than 1,000 miles, like such an intense qualitative experience, and surely by, you know, definitely you have distilled some realization. So I'd like to hear what is it? What have you discovered already? You know, at this point in I'm just so curious to hear how you would frame that and articulate that for us.
Thank you, Karuna Avatar Prabhu. It was a really nice question. I'm
sorry, I'm laughing. I can't, like, we're asking questions and you're just like, thank you. You say the name, you say it so sweetly. I'm just like, I feel really uncultured right now.
No.
Jade is he's exceedingly adorable in that regard, because he authentically does like relate in that way, you know,
right,
like even in our casual, informal, friendly interactions, he speaks to me like that, and sometimes I'm like, oh God, I just want to eat you up, you know, but he really does talk like that. That's what's so amazing.
I know, I believe it.
Yeah, I was just like, that's why I'm like, oh my God, finally, you know, people actually get to experience this like amazing human. Okay, people, go for it. Go for it.
I would say that I was really up in the clouds when I first started. I thought I had so much going for me that I was really up there. I was really up there, and I had put myself up there, and I was getting some kind of like reciprocation from community and that kind of thing, but I'd really pushed myself like right up there. And the kind of moments when you realize that you're actually not that high up there, and you're alone in those moments. It's very I mean, it's like it's humiliating, but it's like because you kind of feel so. There were moments where I was like, thank you so much, Krishna, that there's actually nobody around me, because I am so embarrassed about how low I actually am down on the scale, and I'm embarrassed, I'm like I'm completely embarrassed. So because I pushed myself so high up, there were moments quite early into the walk that it kind of like said, whoa, come on, just come back down to earth. So that was one kind of thing. But naturally, what I wanted to do was rush straight back up there, and I was running 100 kilometers ahead of myself, and completely forgetting where I was in the moment as I was walking on a day-to-day basis. And I was pushing myself so much within my own kind of like mind, and expecting myself to be more than what I actually was, that I completely forgot what was actually required in those moments when I was walking in the beginning. And I can tell you right now, it only happened about a month ago, maybe even less, maybe even about 2.5 weeks ago, that this realization just hit me like a ton of bricks. And how it got to that point was, I'd got to a certain section where, okay, just a quick thing. So the first, from Mozambican border to kind of like the first province is KwaZulu Natal. It's a lot of beach. There's practically no rivers going into the sea, and there's practically no hills or mountains, nothing like that. It's practically just sand. Then you go into the next province, which is the Eastern Cape, and then there's a little bit more hills, a few rockier sections kind of leading into the sea, but nothing too serious. Coming out of the Eastern Cape, there's a lot of cliffs, so a lot of land that is on top, like flat land, and then like sheer cliff down to the sea, and then a lot of rock that is kind of like going into the sea down the bottom. And then coming into the Western Cape, which is the next province, which is the province I am in now, that is quite rocky. I mean, it's got more mountains and rocks, a lot less beach. So coming out of the Eastern Cape, there was a lot of rock, and what I was doing in the beginning, when I was walking along the coast, I would be able to walk about 25 to 30 kilometers in a day. And that would take me a full day. But then I came into the Eastern Cape, and that would take me maybe about 22, 25 kilometers a day. Going out of the Eastern Cape into a more rockier section, where it would take me an entire day to walk 15 kilometers, maybe even less, maybe even 10 to 12 kilometers. So you can understand the kind of concentration that you need to kind of walk over these sections. It's not just walking straight on a path. You're having to negotiate over rocks and cliffs and the whole thing. So it's a real thing. I got to the specific section where the sea was the tide was quite high. The gap between the rocks that I needed to cross was quite far, that I couldn't actually cross. The water was running through the gap of the rocks, and the rock on the other side was really high but really flat. So it was when I reached that point, I looked up and I was just like, there's absolutely no way that I'm going to be able to do this. So it actually got to that point where I felt internally, both physically, mentally, emotionally, that I'd gotten to the point that I felt like I actually can't move forward. It was difficult. I promise you, it was a really difficult thing for me, because getting to that point, getting to that specific point was difficult. But now actually reaching that point, I was like, I I actually can't do this. I'm about to give up. I can't do this anymore. Um, so I backtracked. I walked back a couple of kilometers, and this is the amazing thing. This is the amazing thing. I saw this. I saw this like uh, this wooden pole that was sticking out of this rock that wasn't natural. It was somebody had put it there. So I knew that there was human activity around that area. So I went back to that pole. Couldn't find a path or anything. Then I was like, okay. In my mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to swim. So I started walking to the sea, and all of a sudden to my right, there was this path going up this cliff. Now, it was a really steep path going up to the plateau of the cliff. So I took it as Krishna's kindness, and I started climbing up this plateau, and I went up to the top of the cliff. I managed to set my tent up. I phoned Karuna Avatar Prabhu that day, and I don't know if you guys know, I'm sure you do, but ugly face cry. You're aware of this? Ugly face
I
cry?
know. I've seen
Jai has seen me do that. Yeah.
I mean, thank goodness nobody was around, but my face was like everywhere. I could not even control it. I was crying buckets of tears. And I can't do this anymore, Karuna. I'm so useless. I can't even cross over a freaking rock. I can't do this. I give up. What's the point? I was just like really, really, really like really actually feeling like I can't actually move forward. And it was really difficult. It was really, really, really difficult. Anyway, I Karuna was really helpful, and he just listened to me speak, and I kind of let it all out, and I slept. I pitched my tent that night. I slept in the tent, and then uh, in the morning I'd made an arrangement to kind of walk on top of the plateau, and a lot of other actual really wonderful, significant moments happened after that specific thing that were really helpful. I got to actually see devotees. They came back. It was after Govardhan Puja. They brought me some Mahaprasadam from the hill, from the Govardhan Puja. I got some. The place that I was staying at, he gave me the place to stay for free, and he was a really nice guy. And a lot of things came from that thing. And then even after that, I managed to find another trail back down to the sea and walk, and it was just amazing. But one of the things that came from that, this is the point, one of the things that came from it, and I would say, Karuna Avatar, from your question, that this has probably been the one thing that has been the most significant, and the one thing that's made me realize how high I was up in the sky, and how basic this thing is, how basic and how simple it is, and how much it has allowed me to connect to Krishna at every moment, whether I'm having the most difficult day or the best day of my walking, or wherever I am. This one thing, when I realized this one thing, I was just like, how could you have not even have thought about this? And that one thing was gratitude. Now, I practiced gratitude before I came into Krishna consciousness, but it was a different kind of gratitude. The understanding of gratitude or the kind of practice of gratitude that I was practicing was the gratitude that one has for the law of attraction. Now, my understanding is that when the law of attraction is that when you're grateful for the things that you have, the universe provides you continues providing because you're grateful for the things that you have. But then you can go a step further, and you can be grateful for the things that you don't have, but pretend that you're grateful that you do have them, and the universe provides it for you. It's the law of attraction. I mean, so when I was practicing this law of attraction, I was practicing gratitude for the wrong reasons. I was practicing because I wanted things. Then it got to the point that I realized that I wasn't actually receiving anything, so then I stopped being grateful. It got to the point, isn't it amazing? It got to the point where I was actually becoming now feeling in like having that like kind of entitlement, like I deserve these things, but and then when things would happen to me, I'd be like, that's right, I deserved those things, and I deserve these, and I deserve that. But this particular situation, when I got to that point where I was just like, I can't actually do this, I'd been running so far ahead of myself that I couldn't even see the wood for the trees. I couldn't even see what was right in front of me. I couldn't actually see the support and the kindness and the love that I was receiving from those that were around me. I couldn't actually see that I was doing the one thing that I really actually felt in my heart was good for me, was the best thing for me at that time. I couldn't actually see that everything that I needed was right with me in my backpack. Everything that I needed, I'd already heard and I'd listened to, and I'd kind of experienced already in my life. Everything that I needed, I already had everything with me. And that first moment when I actually like just felt like I felt embarrassed, but at the same time, I just felt so relieved. And I just thought, well, I just couldn't. I just said, thank you. Thank you so much for giving this to me. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to actually be in this position. But now my mind started going back to the old habit of being grateful for things that I want. And I had to now adjust my mind to just be grateful for the things that I've got. I don't need anything. I have everything that I need. And Krishna has provided that for me. And it has been a simple and easy process, but it has been such a liberating process that even in the days when the wind is howling and the rain won't stop falling, I'm cold, I'm miserable, I can't feel my toes because it's so cold, my hands are practically purple, my there's just water everywhere, I'm wet, my tent is wet, my sleeping bag is almost wet, everything in my bag is just it's just wet, and I'm cold, and I've still got a couple of kilometers to walk. And no matter what I do, I'm just going to be cold and miserable and wet. I have something to be grateful for. And it's in that moment that it completely changes. It completely shifts, because you're no longer now thinking about what's around you. You're thinking about now, or I at that moment am thinking, oh, I can actually tolerate this. I can actually tolerate this pain. I can actually tolerate this suffering because I'm grateful for the fact that I actually do have a sleeping bag. I'm grateful for the fact that I actually do have some money, that if I needed to go and buy something hot to drink, or even go sleep at a B&B for the night, I have that, and I can do that, and I have that comfort. I have everything that I need. So that one thing, I would say, out of 1,000 miles, I've walked so long, and there's just this one thing that I can say for sure. And this goes back again to what you were saying, Jai Jagannath Prabhu, is it's like, you know, giving yourself that space to kind of like uh, digest all of this stuff, and seeing, like, really just going back to the basics. And this one thing of gratitude, which is actually interesting, Jai Jagannath Prabhu. I actually saw your post on Instagram was Carl Jung's thing, and I was like, wow, that is really significant. I can't remember. I don't know. Can you remember the exact?
I can look. It says if your religion is based on salvation, then your predominating emotion will be fear, and if your religion is based on wonder, then your predominating emotion will be gratitude.
Isn't that amazing? It's like when I read that Judge Dogma for a while, I was like, oh my god, that's exactly what I wanted to speak about. You know, like that's it's exactly like how I was feeling. It's exactly that one thing, that one simple thing. Like, I mean, we know Karuna Avatar, the things that we read, we've got like volumes of texts that tell you so much about stuff that will blow your mind right out of the water. You know, that tells you the absolute truth, that is going to take you straight back home, back to Godhead, that is going to connect you directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. All of these things that you can perfect your life by reading these volumes of texts and all of these wonderful knowledge. But my realization was that how can I how can I how can I expect myself to know all these things and have all these things when I can't even be grateful for the peanut butter that's in my bag? You know? How can I expect to be on such a high level when I can't even be grateful for the fact that I have legs to actually do this walk? And it's just such a simple thing. It's such a simple thing. But it opens up so much room for allowing all of that information to become more. You can receive it a lot more. You become more receptive to it, and I'm experiencing it. I'm experiencing it through this walk.
I think
Just
this.
that,
Yeah, sorry. I was gonna
just
say
the basic
this.
thing, gratitude. That's really what I
Yeah,
want to end of saying.
I wanted to say I think the simplicity of that realization conceals its profundity. You know, and again, especially in the context of like devotees, where we have so much knowledge and access to just like a world of thought that's literally inconceivable,
Right.
and you know, and like we're grateful. Like we have the Bhagavatam and so on, but I'm like, how many of us even read the Bhagavatam on the daily? Or
Yeah.
we have this whole library of Goswami's literatures and so on that's been translated. How many of us even read that? Like, you know, we're just happy that we have it. And so the simplicity of what you're expressing here conceals its profundity, and the and of course, because it's concealed, it doesn't necessarily register in the third person party
Mm.
listening to this. It doesn't necessarily register in our psyche, because it's kind of concealed unless you're directly experiencing it. That space of gratitude, then yeah, you're just like a third person party. It's like too abstract
Right.
almost. It's like, yeah, of course I'm grateful, but like what's the real point? Like what's the
Sure.
real realization?
Sure.
It makes it a little challenge. I have one other question, and I know we want to do some more, maybe one other song or something. But Karuna Avatar, I don't know if you had anything earlier in our conversation. This thing got brought up, which I thought was interesting. Follow your bliss can also be considered gaslighting and spiritual bypassing. It also removes the need for discipline / tapasya for any growth of craft, which I think is an interesting statement.
It is.
That word, spiritual bypassing, can't stand it. And the reason I can't stand it is because I didn't even know that rubric until 2020, where everyone was using it in the context of the BLM movements here in America. And if you didn't want to like chime in on it, then you were spiritual bypassing. It was like a very politicized thing. When I
Right.
researched the phrase spiritual bypassing, it was coined by a Buddhist theologian. I don't think you can call Buddhist theologians, but a Buddhist practitioner. And he observed in his communities that people with spiritual bypass, which means like not deal with the human parts of themselves in the quest of transcendence or nirvana in the case of Buddhists. So he called that a spiritual bypassing. He was speaking to a culture of needing to integrate the human experience with the aspiration for transcendence or nirvana, which I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I can totally see that spiritual bypassing goes on in spiritual communities. That makes sense to me. The way the word spiritual bypassing is used here, though, seems to have even a different context. Follow your bliss can also be considered gaslighting and spiritual bypassing, which gives it a sense of like escapism, at least the way that it comes up in the sentence. It also removes the need for discipline / deposit for any growth of craft. So the way it seems to be used here is like as a running away from or escapism of responsibility or commitment or dedication. And I know with stuff like this, especially in the context of like the Hare Krishna, doctrine of the need for guidance from guru and sadhu, going on a journey like this where you're largely alone and exploring your inner world, kind of learning to be with yourself, basically. It seems that it could strike the typical, let's say, Hare Krishna or member of a institutional spirituality as like an escapism of the responsibility of dedicating oneself to a higher authority or a chain of command, or a sort of commitment to a very specific process because you just want to do what you want to do. And as a Hare Krishna, that must play out in our psyche a little bit. Am I running away from XYZ and so on? So I was kind of curious about that. How does that come up for you or has that come up for you in this journey? And how do you reconcile, if so, how do you reconcile yourself to that thinking? Like, no, I'm not, I'm actually exploring my inner world. I'm not just trying to run away from the chain of command or from the Guru Parampara or Sadhu. It's like, how does that play out for you?
Thank you. Yeah, it's really nice. I saw myself as being something that I was not when I started walking. I I can be quite honest and say that I thought that I was much more uh, I was much more being a much closer to being a pure devotee than what I actually realized that I was.
Yeah,
And
I
that
can
was
relate to that.
because I was following the I was doing what I was doing what I was told. But that connection that I was speaking about in the beginning was not there. And how is it so? How is it possible that that could happen? That I'm doing everything I'm told, but even sitting in a temple room with deities in front of me and devotees surrounding me chanting Hare Krishna, I don't feel that. It concerned me.
Mm.
I really like your point, Anjali. I think that it's a really good point, and it has to be taken very cautiously. Whoever's going to make that kind of decision, but I think that the conversations that Karuna Avatar Prabhu and I've had quite a bit in the past is that being honest with where you actually are is so important. And again, I go back to what I said in the beginning about this podcast. Is it's really bringing that out so much. Is it's allowing people to actually be honest with where they're at and taking it from there, because that is you can only do so. You can only go so far. You can only go so far until you reach a dead end, and then how strongly rooted is your practice? When you have to
Yeah.
cross over that bridge, or when you have to, deal with a situation that is like way beyond your qualification, but somehow or other you think that you can do it, and then if you're not going to decide to to be honest with yourself, then either karma is going to remind you or Krishna is going to give you a fat slap on the ear, and you're going to remember. You're going to be like, okay, I actually am not where I thought I was. Where I feel fortunate is that I had the support from a lot of senior devotees and a lot of my community members, friends and family, which kind of gave me more of kind of enthusiasm to do it.
Wow.
But
Those are some rare Hare Krishnas.
yeah, right, right.
Yeah,
But I mean,
absolutely.
it
No,
is just it's going back to just being honest with where you are actually in your life, and that is scary in itself. You know, that is scary in itself, because if you are actually really honest, you're gonna you're gonna see where you actually are, and it's like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
humiliating, it's
But
embarrassing.
I do think that it's almost like a non-negotiable necessity, because basically this whole argument comes down to the following thing. It's like the difference between I feel I should and I genuinely want to.
Mm,
And I feel I should is fundamentally unsustainable. Like, you will burn out. If
right.
you don't genuinely want to, then that is a problem. And then you need to find that authentic desire for a particular pursuit or endeavor, right? Um, and
Right.
sometimes we need to experience contrast. We need to experience the other end. We need to experience darkness in order to be able to appreciate the light. You know, I've been going through very visceral extended experience in that regard recently, um, and I am so content with where I'm at, and going through that, and again getting the darshan of like the value of something, instead of just mechanistically keeping yourself immersed in a particular way of life, as Jai, you said, because you just embrace the dogma, you embrace it on the basis of truth with a capital T. I must do this, I should do this because this is the truth, not like this genuinely inspires my heart. Yeah. Okay, Jade Prabhu, we are reaching close to our end point, but I am so enthusiastic to hear another one of your songs, and this time
Okay.
I won't be so audacious as to, you know, uh, compel you to play a particular one, but please share whatever you feel you want to share.
This is quite nice. This is a song that kind of goes with following your bliss, basically. So it's perfect, perfect. Okay, so this song is called "Brighter Than the Sun." Now we understand that the soul that is within our hearts is magnificent, and it is actually said that I mean, I don't know if is it like 10 times brighter than the sun. Jai Jagannath Prabhu, is it? You heard that? Anyway, it's understood that the soul that is within the heart is brighter than the sun. And if you can imagine that, it's pretty amazing, because the sun is pretty magnificent and and spectacular. So what is in your heart and what is in mine is very unique, and it's very uh, beautiful, and it shines like anything. So who you are and who I am are two very different. We are two very different souls, and we have our relationship with Krishna is very unique, and that's what makes it so special. And when you um, take that risk of following your bliss, or following your dreams, or taking that step forward into being honest with where you're at, and uh, moving forward with that in progressive to becoming better in your life, then you become in touch with that soul. So this song is just about encouraging you to to take that step in whatever way you see it within your life. Okay, sorry, it's just a little out of tune.
No worries, mate. It's not a problem.
shown kindness to someone today? Have you put a smile on somebody's face? Real compassion comes from those who see that everyone is suffering. Can you forgive those? Can you? Can you forgive those who have done you wrong? Can you beg forgiveness for the wrong that you have done? Real love is not what you say, but what you do. Even if you don't want to. Please stop wasting your time, throwing your bucket down a dried up well. Your heart buries a light that's brighter than the sun. It's time to shine that light on everyone. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Can you remind someone who they really are? Can you hold their hand as they walk out the door? The absolute truth has come to set us free from the knot that binds you and me. Please stop wasting your time, throwing your bucket down a dried up well. Your heart buries a light that's brighter than the sun. It's time to shine that light on everyone. Please stop wasting your time, throwing your bucket down a dried up well. 'Cause your heart buries a light that's brighter than the sun. It's time to shine that light on everyone.
Wow, amazing. I haven't heard that one for a while. That was so nice. Jai.
Thank you.
This is beautiful. That was our last little computer comment. And I have this belief, that beauty will save the world. I mean, the world right now is, ghetto because of its preoccupation with power. So there's this phrase, I think it comes in one of the Gaudiya Math Sanghas. They have these videos, they put beauty over power. And this episode has been very beautiful and very touching for me even. And I don't get touched very easily. I'm a little bit of a stoic, hard ass.
I was a little nervous about that, Jai Jagannath Prabhu. I must be honest, because I am a squishy little monster, you know. Like my heart is just so soft, and I was like, how the heck am I going to do this? So I'm very happy. I'm
Okay.
very happy to hear that.
I'm very nice though, and
I know, I know, I know.
in
I know.
person,
No.
I'm very like good at holding
I
space
trust you.
and reciprocating, emotions. But yeah, just it's a problem that I'm dealing with and learning to, grow out of
Yeah, but
myself.
it's also like you've just told yourself that so much, Jai Jagannath, that no, I don't feel any emotions. Oh, I'm so stoic. No, no, no. But you're actually really a soft-hearted guy, and I've seen you be touched so many times, and every time that you're touched, you're like, no, I don't really feel emotions. I'm actually really stoic. But that was so nice. Oh my god, that was so beautiful. Jai Jagannath Prabhu, it's okay to say that things are beautiful and that your heart is actually soft,
Okay.
Okay, I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. Everybody, if you'd like to keep your eye on Jade and what he's getting up to, at Soul, but SOLE _ Pilgrim on Instagram. And he's also Jade Green on Facebook, so you can add him, you can follow his journey. He's just recently started like sharing some of his thoughts and feelings and experiences on the social media realm, but he's definitely going to be continuing in that regard. So oh, sheep. Yeah. We'll melt you, bro. We'll melt. Anyway, that was beautiful. Okay, Jade, your mom is saying, you make my heart complete. I love the man.
That's wonderful.
Thank you for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been super awesome. I was feeling a little sick actually just before we got on the episode. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm overwhelmed. This is too much for me. I can't with this. I was like in that mindset. And then right at the beginning of the conversation, the first 10 minutes, I was just like, wow, this is very special. And then I felt my whole consciousness shift and my sickness go. I don't feel sick. I'm still having some physical thing right now, but it feels completely transformed by this conversation and by your presence. So I'm very grateful to meet you.
Thank you. It's really nice to meet you too, Jai Jagannath Prabhu. And again, thank you guys so much for your wonderful, act that you're doing. It's really quite special. And I'm going to say this again to everyone who's watching this and whoever's going to watch it again. Please, in the comments, I'm doing your guys' job. From my side, everyone, please write in the comments and wherever you can, just appreciation for these guys in whatever way that you feel, because that is the most simple and basic way to show your love for these guys. They really are doing a wonderful job, and you guys are. I'm very grateful to have been a part of this, and I look forward to seeing how this goes on further. So thank you also.
Hare Krishna. We will still announce what we're going to do for episode 51 next week or so, but then either on the 17th or the 21st of December, we're going to be doing our final episode, episode 52, entitled 108 Shades of Grey. And we will be sharing our conclusions and not our conclusions, more like our conclusions based on our findings from a little research project that we did a little bit earlier this year to find out what are really in actuality the sexual values and practices of devotee couples in our greater society, to just see where people are really at. So myself, Jai Jagannath Prabhu, Danya Rico, as well as Kumari Saki and Brajananda, we sort of like conducted this thing together. And so the five of us will come onto the podcast and just share our findings and just, get that conversation going. It's a big conversation. Everyone's having it behind the scenes, and we'd like to bring it into the public space. So that will be episode 52 in about 2 weeks' time. And then stay tuned. We'll do something special for episode 51 as well.
Yes, indeed.
yeah, and we're just happy to be here and to serve in this way. Arriba!
Right.
Everybody.
Hare Krishna.